Have you ever stopped to wonder why you aren't just a clone of one of your parents? Well, the answer is this incredible, powerful force in biology called sexual reproduction. It is, no joke, the engine of evolution. It's the secret to survival for so many species and the reason we see such a mind-blowing diversity of life all over the planet. So today, we're going to unravel the mysteries of how this whole thing works, from tiny algae all the way to complex parasites. And to guide us through all this, we're going to be leaning heavily on the fantastic work of Dr. Ramez Abo-Elenen. His explanations and these super clear diagrams from his biofamily series are just perfect for breaking down what can be a really complex topic into steps that, actually make sense. So let's dive right in. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the absolute basics. Then we'll look at a really cool and kind of weird example in algae called conjugation. From there, we'll jump to the method we're all more familiar with, reproduction with gametes. Then, get ready, because we're going to tackle a truly wild concept called alternation of generations. And finally, we'll put it all together and compare sexual versus asexual reproduction head to head. It's going to be great. All right, first things first. Before we get into all the nitty-gritty examples, we need to build a solid foundation. So, what is sexual reproduction really? What's the main idea behind it? At its heart, sexual reproduction is all about teamwork. You need two parents to get the process started. But the real magic, the big payoff, is the genetic variation it creates. By mixing the DNA from two different individuals, you get this unique genetic cocktail in the offspring. And that variety is absolutely key for adapting and surviving. The whole process kicks off when two specialized cells, called gametes, fuse together to form what's called a zygote. And that is the very first cell of a brand new organism. Okay, so a great way to think about this is with an analogy. Imagine a parent cell has a full library of genetic information, let's say 2 copies of every book. Now, to create offspring, it can't just give away its entire library. So instead, through a process called meiosis, it makes 4 new libraries, but each one only has 1 copy of every book. These are the haploid gametes. Then, when 2 of these half libraries from 2 different parents combine, boom, you get a new complete library in the zygote. It's a really clever way to make sure every generation has the right amount of genetic material. All right, time for a quick pop quiz to see if you're following along. Based on what we've just talked about, which one of these statements is not correct? A, B, or C? Go ahead and pause for a second, think about it, and then we'll go over the answer. And the answer is C. If you picked C, nice job. It's a fantastic reminder that in biology, just when you think you've got a rule figured out, there's almost always a fascinating exception. And, speaking of exceptions, that brings us perfectly to our first major example. So, picture this. You've got this little green alga, Spirogyra, just floating around in a pond. When conditions are great, plenty of water, perfect temperature, it's totally happy, reproducing by itself, asexually. But when things get tough, say the pond starts to dry up, it has this amazing trick up its sleeve. It switches to a special type of sexual reproduction called conjugation. It's a survival strategy, really. Now take a look at this amazing diagram from Dr. Ramez's work. It lays out the whole process so clearly. You can see these 2 long filaments of Spirogyra lining up right next to each other. This is the very beginning of what's called scalar form conjugation, and it's a pretty remarkable story of survival. So how does this work? Well, first, the 2 filaments line up. Then, little protrusions start to grow out from opposite cells, reaching for each other until they connect and form a bridge, a conjugation tube. And here's where it gets really cool. The entire living content of one cell, the protoplasm, actually travels across that bridge and fuses with the cell on the other side. This fusion creates a new diploid zygote. But it doesn't end there. To survive those bad conditions, the zygote builds a super tough, thick wall around itself, becoming a zygospore. Think of it like a seed in suspended animation. It can just sit there dormant for a long, long time, just waiting. And when conditions finally get better, it springs back into action. It undergoes meiosis, creating 4 new nuclei. Now, 3 of those actually degenerate, but the one that survives grows into a completely new Spirogyra filament. Just an incredible story of resilience. But wait, there's more. Spirogyra actually has another trick. It's called lateral conjugation. This is basically its plan B. If it can't find another filament to partner with, it can still do a version of sexual reproduction between 2 adjacent cells on the same filament. It doesn't create nearly as much genetic variation, but hey, when you're in a tough spot, it's better than nothing, right?
Okay, now that we've seen that really unique example of conjugation, let's circle back to the more common method of sexual reproduction, the one you probably first think of. And that's the one that involves the fusion of male and female gametes.
The way this works is almost like a treasure hunt. The male gametes, think sperm, are like the explorers. They're small, they're fast, and there are millions of them. Their one and only job is to find the treasure. The female gamete, the egg, is the treasure. It's large, it stays put, and it's packed with all the food and resources needed to kickstart a new life. It's this incredibly high-stakes race where the future of the species is on the line.
Okay, I hope you're ready for this next one, because things are about to get really weird and really cool. We're now entering a world where an organism doesn't have to choose between sexual and asexual reproduction. It gets to do both. And our case study for this mind-bending concept is none other than the malaria parasite Plasmodium.
Seriously, it's like having a biological superpower. In one phase of your life, you're an expert at making clones, just pumping out massive numbers of copies of yourself. Then, in the next phase, you switch to sexual reproduction, mixing up your genes to stay one step ahead of your host's immune system. This switching back and forth is called alternation of generations, and it's what makes the malaria parasite so dangerously successful. So the parasite is a master infiltrator, and it needs two different hosts to pull off its complex life cycle, a human and a female Anopheles mosquito. It uses the human body for its asexual cloning phase, and then uses the mosquito's stomach for its sexual gene-mixing phase. It's this incredibly complex and deadly game, and humans are caught right in the middle of it. Let's trace this wild journey. It all starts when a mosquito bites a human, injecting these things called sporozoites. They head to the liver, then the red blood cells, where they start cloning themselves like crazy, becoming merozoites. Now, some of these turn into gametocytes, which are the infective stage for the next mosquito. So when another mosquito bites, it sucks up these gametocytes. Inside the mosquito's stomach, they fuse, that's the sexual part, to form a diploid zygote. That zygote then develops into an oocyst, which produces thousands of new sporozoids, which migrate to the mosquito's salivary glands, ready to start the whole deadly cycle over again. It's just incredible.
Whew, okay, we have been on quite a journey, from simple algae to that incredibly complex parasite. So now it's time to zoom out, put everything into perspective, and ask the big question. Which is better, sexual or asexual reproduction? You know, it's really a story of two different strategies. Asexual reproduction is all about speed and efficiency. It uses mitotic division, which is basically like a biological photocopier, just churning out identical copies. It's fast, it's easy, but if there's a problem, every copy has that same problem. Sexual reproduction is the opposite. It's slower, it takes more energy, it uses meiotic division to create variety. It's less like a photocopier and more like a master chef, combining different ingredients to create something totally new. The result is an offspring that is much better equipped to handle a changing environment.
And this really gets to the heart of it. This quote from Dr. Ramez's work just sums it up perfectly. It's all about continuous innovations. Sexual reproduction is the ultimate tool for giving the next generation a fighting chance, for equipping them to face whatever new challenges the environment throws at them. It's literally evolution happening in real time. So I'll leave you with this final thought. If sexual reproduction is so much more costly, it takes more time, more energy, you have to find a mate, why is it the go-to strategy for almost all complex life on this planet? Why did evolution favor this more difficult path? The answer, I think, really speaks to the incredible power of genetic diversity and the undeniable advantage of being able to adapt and change in an ever-changing world.